where I am, God is. Where I stand, God is standing strong. Where I breathe, God is breathing life in and out and through me. Ask me where I sing, God is. Where I dance, joy lives at my feet. Where I live, beauty's flowing free, in and out and through me. As me, for where I doubt, God is the faith in me. Where I cry, God is the comfort there. Where I seek, God is the answer, here and now, forever and ever and ever. Where I speak, truth is. Where I work, love is my career. And where I play, God is playing boldly, in and out and through me. As me, oh, oh, do-do-do, oh, hey, yeah. Where I am, where I stand, where I play, where I work and breathe and move and feel, where I sing, where I dance, my dance, wherever I go, where I pray and take and give and leave. God is, life is, joy is, oh, God is.
Faith Rivera, wherever I am, God is. Beautiful. This is Ben Dowling, Miles Joseph, Joy, Jukes, ERG, Idris Hester on percussion. Wherever I am, God is.
I love that song, God is. God is in everything that we do. And my topic this morning is in the mind of God. Now, when I first was asked for a topic, I sent through an email that my topic would be the mind of God. And as the week went on, I said, I don't want to talk about the mind of God. I want to talk about in the mind of God, because that's where we want to be. Let me explain. Because when I grew up, it was all about knowing the mind of God as you're doing an assessment. And like they were saying earlier, I do assessments on adults and children. What does that mean? That means that they talk to me and they tell me all the good and all the bad stuff that they've done in their life, and I write a court report. And it's very objective and it's very judgmental. That's what I grew up thinking the mind of God was. Do you remember the Garden of Eden?
Oh, yeah.
You remember when they ate from the tree of life, and what was the tree of life? It was learning about good and evil. They didn't know about that before. Let me tell you what happens when you eat that apple or you begin to know about good and evil. You become judgmental. That's what happened to me. And I think that happens to all people. I was blessed. Let me tell you how I was blessed. I grew up in a household that was dysfunctional. I learned so much from that household because I grew up judging my dad, who was an alcoholic, and I thought he was the worst, and I became the best critic of people. I mean, not just my dad, but it filtered into every aspect of my life. I would watch television and just criticize the heck out of everybody. I mean, I don't care if it was an actor or a talent show. I was the critic, and I was good at it. Why was I good at it? Because I had a dad that was easy to find the fault in. And when you can find that fault in somebody, you think, oh, I'm doing such a good job because I can see they're an ass. And now my job is to tell you that they're an ass. Oh, I was good at it. And one thing, I was about 14 years old, I remember about my mom. My mom was a social worker, and she would bring her work home. She was on call. And she would tell me about her clients and that they did this and that and the other. And I was a teenager. I could care less. I was critical of her. I was critical of everybody. That was my job. I was the critic. You understand. Not you guys, just me. You've never been there, just me. And so my mom said to me one day, I was 14, she said, you know, I've got to go to the hospital because one of my clients, my male clients, knocked out his spouse. She's in the hospital. He went to jail. Bless his heart. And I said, Mom, you know that the woman is in the hospital. Why are you blessing his heart? And she said, hon, nobody grows up wanting to hurt the one that they love the most. Nobody sets out doing all this stuff. He doesn't even like his behavior. She said, if I'm supposed to help him, I need to see him the way God created him. And it starts with a blessing. Now, my mom was coming from a space that I was not familiar with, because as a critic, that could not come into my consciousness. As a critic, I know about right and wrong, and this guy's wrong. My mom was talking about something that could not even penetrate me. So what did I do? My mom didn't know anything. That's what a critic does. When God consciousness can't come into a critic, I've got to blame the messenger. Oh, they don't know what they're talking about. Oh, they've got it screwed up. She doesn't know all the facts of what this guy did. And I did the same thing with my dad. I would tell her, you know, Dad is horrible. Dad is crazy. My mom would say, love him anyway. What would I say? Mom doesn't know all the facts. She needs to know more dirt about him. Because it couldn't penetrate my consciousness. I thought God was about good and evil. If I'm doing good, kind of good, and I see you're doing bad, then I can point out your bad stuff, and I'm godlike. That's not the way it is. This is what happened to me. I was living my life as the critic. I couldn't get along with my boss, my coworkers. Do you understand why? Because a critic can't get along with people because they're always pointing out what you're doing wrong and what you should be doing this and you should be doing that. A critic never looks within because then you'd have to work on yourself. And that's like territory that you don't get into. I'd rather point out your stuff, and then if you don't fix it, I can always blame you. If you don't change, I can always say, well, you know, they're never going to change and it's their fault. A critic is in this territory, and you kind of think, since you know about good and evil, that you're doing God work. It's a delusion. Let me tell you what happened to me. And I was an adult when this happened. I wasn't getting along with people at work. Work wasn't good. Work was, their fault, my boss's fault, everybody else's fault. It's the county's fault. It's the system. I could always blame somebody. What I didn't realize, that my inner critic had a seed. And that seed went all the way back when I was a little kid to my dad. And people said, you need to forgive your dad. And I didn't understand what they were talking about because I had moved thousands of miles away. I had no real contact with him. I didn't see him on a daily basis. Why do I need to forgive that? Because I'm dealing with my ex-husband. What does that have to do with my dad? Had everything to do with my dad, because that was the seed of my anger. That was the seed of that personality of good and evil, and that was the seed of my critic. But I couldn't heal it on my own. I needed divine intervention because it was deep. It wasn't something that I could just do in a journal and forgive years of cognitive criticism. I needed divine intervention. And I got it. One day when I was driving to work, I was on automatic pilot. You know what that is. When you don't even remember driving, you've done this road before. I was on automatic pilot. And what I remember is pulling into the parking lot at work, crying. Because from the time on the freeway when I left the house, to the time of the parking lot at the county, I had a video going on in my head, and there was a light. And that light was showing me the love that they had for my father. And it was divine love. So let me see if I can explain or put a little bit more meat on that bone. When I got to the parking lot, I was crying and I felt love for my father. And I'm not talking about human love. I'm talking about God love. It was a love that was a blanket that covered all wrongs that I thought was wrong. And the way God sees us is not based on good and evil and the wrong that you've done or the right that you've done. God loves you because you are a part of Him, a part of that energy. You are His creation. And because God's personality is love, that's the only thing that He can give. He can't give judgment. There's only love and compassion. I didn't know that before because I never had an experience of it. So on that road to the freeway, I had an experience of how God felt about my dad, and I was crying because I also knew that He felt that way about me. I was also crying because I knew He felt that way about my boss at work, and my coworker that I couldn't get along with. And my mom, I was able to see her vision and her knowledge through the lens of God now. Whereas before I thought she was naive. Now I saw that she was in the mind of God. And I had just a perception of what I thought was God, which was false. So my delusion was broken. So when I went to work that day, because God had healed that seed of anger, I was nice towards my boss and loving towards him. And I had never been that way before because my boss was a moron. Do you understand the difference? Do you understand the difference that my mind had changed? And how did my mind change? Because now I was in the mind of God. What I was experiencing was God as me. Now, in Kabbalah, they say you never talk about God. You never describe God. It's forbidden. And why is that? It's not forbidden because you just can't talk about God. It's because it's based on your experience of God, and it might look different to somebody else. So I'm very cautious when I'm talking about God. I'm talking about my experience, and it will show up in your life as you. So God, that energy expresses through you. What did I need to be healed? I needed to be healed that kernel of hatred, of criticism that permeated every relationship that I had. Whether it was my husband, my boss, my coworker, it started with my dad and it infiltrated to everything else. And what did I need? Where did I need the healing? I needed it with my dad. Now, I was in my 30s when that happened. I wasn't 15 when I was right in the middle of that anger. No, I was in my 30s. I was in my career. I had gone through a divorce. I had gone through some stuff. And then that divinity came and showed me, Karmen, you've got me all wrong. I'm not right and wrong. I'm not that critical voice. I'm not that judgmental that you think I am. I am love, pure love, not based on behavior, not based on skin color, not based on anything. I am love, period. And that's a love that I couldn't understand. My mom had. I didn't understand it. I had to experience God for myself. So when you're in the mind of God, you're experiencing that energy and it's coming through and healing what you need to heal so you can be in it and not outside of it. I have another example of that. I don't know if you've ever heard of the crystal beds. Now, the crystal bed is something that John of God in Brazil has, and it's basically a line of crystals. You sit on the bed, you turn it on, you sit there for an hour with wonderful music, and it's supposed to heal whatever is ailing you. So the crystal bed sometimes travels around the United States, and I had an opportunity to do the crystal bed, and I said, well, I don't know what I'm going to use it for. I don't know if it's going to work or not. I'm just curious. So I go, I pay the $65, whatever it is. I'm listening to the meditative music. I'm laying on the bed. I'm just thinking about, oh, you know, life is good. An hour goes by. I get up. I feel the same. I'm like, well, I don't know if it worked or not. I go to my car. I turn on my car. I'm driving down the street. I look over and I see this guy smoking in the car next to me. And I said to myself, when did I start smoking? When did I start smoking? And I was serious. I thought I had started smoking. What I realized is that I was no different than the guy next to me in the car. And I thought, whoa, wait a minute. Is this that oneness everybody's talking about? Because I can be in moments of oneness, but I'd never been in that moment of oneness where I actually thought I had started smoking cigarettes because the guy next to me was smoking. And it took me a little bit to say, wait a minute. I am that guy, but I'm not that guy. Wait a minute, this is wild. And so imagine if we go through life in the mind of God. Now, in the mind of God, there is no other. In the mind of God, I am you and you are me. But in this planet, in this material world, we have skin color. We have gender. We have somebody's wealthy and somebody's in poverty. We have old and young. Let me tell you what that is. That's a delusion. Once we get past that and we are one with another person, we're in the mind of God. We're no longer seeing us as separate. And as soon as we see each other as separate and as other, what kicks in? Good and evil. Criticism. Judgment. You're not good enough. But as soon as you get into that oneness, you are me. There is no separation. And we see the delusion for what it is. It is not being in the mind of God. And in the Bible it says we move and we live and we have our being in the mind of God. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, which is his mind, and all these things will be added unto you. Why? Because everything comes from there. How could it be hindered from you when you're in it and not outside of it? begging, looking, searching. No, be in it. Be in it. See the oneness. Let go of the criticism and the judgment. I was almost in an accident on the freeway. Somebody had swerved in front of me, and I was still in that zone of oneness. And so when they swerved in front of me, I swerved in the other lane.
Wow.
And then I corrected and got back in my lane, and everything was corrected. But you know how when you almost hit people, they come up alongside you and they've got to give you a face or a finger or something like that. So the guy that I almost hit, he comes up on the side of me and he's giving me these dirty looks. And in my mind I said, I'm scared because I almost got hit. I didn't say, he's scared. I said, I'm scared because I almost got hit because I'm him. Have you ever been scared before? Yeah, I've been scared on the freeway before. So I didn't see him as other. I saw him as, oh yeah, I'm scared because I almost got hit. And then the woman that almost hit me, she flies by and I said, I must have been confused. And that's why she almost hit me, but it wasn't she, it was I. I am, we are. And so I go throughout my day, no matter what's going on, I'm happy over there, that woman over there that is smiling over there, I'm happy. This woman over here that's in the back of the church, I'm happy because she's smiling. I'm nodding over there in agreement. He's nodding. What if we had this way of seeing life that lets us know we're in the mind of God? And let me tell you, there's a joy that comes from that. Not from alcohol, not from drugs, but from knowing that there's an energy within you, around you, that you're swimming in, that is pure love. Wow. What would our life be like? And everybody in it is pure love and light. Everybody. Everybody. So no matter what they're presenting, I see love, I see light, I see God. That is who I am. That is what I see. I am one with that. What if that's how we lived our life?
Beautiful.
Wonderful. Yes, beautiful. I'd like to read something from Ernest Holmes, and he talks about this oneness also. Well, it's all about oneness. That's why it's called Science of Mind. We want to always be in the mind of God. And all of his teachings are about how to get there and what it's like once you're there. This all-conquering power of the Spirit finds self-expression through man. The Supreme Being is at the center of each one of us. To it we may come for guidance, and from it we may draw both inspiration and the power to live, stand, walk, or sit. Every act is an outcome of consciousness. Every movement is within the divine being. And since the divine being is everywhere, it must also be at the center of our own life. It is not only at the center of our own life, it is at the center. Hence, to think of it as the very essence of our own being is clear thinking. So to think of God as the essence of our being and that we come from that space, that's clear thinking. When we have the delusion that we are outside of that and people are separate and we can just sit back and judge the world, that's a delusion. Our clear thinking comes from the mind of God, which we are always connected with. We each have that power to be in the mind of God. It's not just it's not just Jesus and Buddha. It's not just the Dalai Lama. It's not just Gandhi. It's not just these people. It's all of us seeing ourselves as one. And that's a good exercise to have when you see someone and say, oh, I'm wearing green today. I like that color green on me. This is the thinking. This is the thinking pattern that is clear thinking. To know that its being is our being is right knowing. And to declare that its life is our life is to permit its power to flow through us. There's another attribute of God that flows through me, and I would not have known this attribute existed if I had not experienced it. I would like to share that with you. When I'm in a meditation, and I'm not a 4-hour meditation person like Deepak Chopra or anything like that, my meditations are very short, and I will start laughing because God has a sense of humor. Many of you know that. See, growing up, I didn't know that. I think I still thought that he was sitting on a cloud with a book of judgments, but God is a laugher. And there are certain things that will happen in your day that is hysterical, and you will be in the mind of God. You will be laughing, having a good time. Other people may not understand where your humor is coming from, and that's okay, because he, and I say he, but it's an energy, it's a source energy that enjoys life. That's why he created life. And when you enjoy life, what are you going to have? You're going to have a humor about you. You're going to have a tickleness. Something's going to tickle you during the day. And you can be in the mind of God and laughing and having a good time. And we know laughter is good physically for you. It clears your mood. It elevates the room sometimes. And this is coming from God. So I want you to expand your notion of what you grew up with thinking God is, because God will be expressed through you. And if you have a funny bone in you, it's going to be elevated. If you have a power and a strength within you, it's going to be elevated. Remember, that energy passes through you. You give it permission to express through you. And I could not give it permission as long as I was critical. I could not give it permission to come through me, act through me, as long as I was stuck in that seed of anger and criticism towards my dad. Do you understand that when he created me, he gave me that dysfunctional family so that I could come through that to the other side to express what I'm expressing to you, because there are many people in this room that have had dysfunctional families. And they need to hear this message through my lens because I lived it and I also experienced being in the mind of God now. Do you see how amazing and intelligent this source energy is? When you understand the intelligence behind it, to give you this, which you think is bad, and then to elevate you to what is pure love. It gives the true meaning to I am that I am. Let's go into a meditation.
Jesus, Buddha, Kali, Krishna, Isis, Mandela, Sophia, Mohammed, Yahweh, Sai Baba, La Virgen, Maria, Wakantanka, Ramana. Silence, freedom, detachment, devotion, wisdom, surrender, salvation, compassion, sacred, oneness, abundance, the truth remains, all is love. Jesus, Buddha, Kali, Krishna, Isis, Mandela, Sophia, Mohammed, Yahweh, Sai Baba, La Virgen, Maria, Wakantanka, Ramana. Silence, freedom, detachment, devotion, wisdom, surrender, salvation, compassion, sacred, oneness, Sankaramana. Silence, freedom, detachment, devotion, wisdom, surrender, salvation, compassion, sacred, oneness, abundance, the truth remains always love. We are looking for the Christ, the Lenin, you are the Martin Luther King.